Well, welcome to Silverstone for the British rounds of the FIA GT3 European Championship. My name's David Croft. Alongside me in the commentary box, the legend that is John Watson. Looking forward to a very competitive first race in the GT3 European Championship this weekend that sees no less than 5 different manufacturers in the first 5 places on the grid, John.
Yes, and there is the side of the GT3 grid looking from the exit of club all the way down to the turn one, the new turn one at Silverstone. For the first time, the new Silverstone wing, the new pits complex, conference centre, weddings and everything else you can think of.
What are you, publicity campaign for the new pit lane centre today?
As I mentioned in the opening of the show, I'm a part owner along with 580 odd other members of the British Racing Drivers Club. So we have got to promote our investment. But anyway, family day, sunny day, but most of all, David, it is very windy. Sitting in the commentary booth, we see the leaves and the branches, but until you walk down the pit lane, you don't realise just how much wind, and that is going to have an effect on many of the cars here this afternoon in the GT3 event.
Well, you can see the flags fluttering there. It's pretty much a headwind as you come down the main straight towards our camera position at the first corner, which is of course Abbey now, so a crosswind as you go through Abbey, but I would imagine on more exposed parts of the circuit, Hanger Straight into Stowe for instance, and through Maggots and Beckett's, that wind is going to play havoc and is going to induce touches of understeer, maybe a bit of oversteer at times, Johnny. Getting the balance of the car right, it's going to be so tricky today.
Well, the qualifying for GT3 was about 2.5 hours ago. In that time, the wind clearly has picked up. So everybody who thought they had a pretty nicely balanced car may suddenly discover that the balance that they had is, where's it gone? Well, actually, it's gone with the wind. Also, track temperature, ambient temperature, all those things have increased in the last 2 and a bit hours. And as we get a look at the Silverstone, the headquarters of the British Racing Drivers Club, somewhat forlorn looking right now as we look back to the new Silverstone wing.
So let's hear from part of the pole-winning duo. Federico Leo leads us off. Francesco Castellucci is with Haley. Well, unfortunately, we'll try and come back to Francesco Castellucci. We can't quite hear from him down with Haley at the moment. A few technical problems on the grid as we make our way past BMW, Lamborghini, Mercedes-Benz at the 5th place. Mercedes-Benz, Joachim Lambotti will start us off in Graf Racing. The AF Corsa Ferrari, Daniel Brown in 6th on the grid. Aston Martin, who may go well for GT, represented here as well. 8 manufacturers on this GT3 grid this afternoon. And the Mercedes-Benz struggling a touch with those iconic Gulf wings there in the conditions this morning. But to get back to the conditions, John, the wind also affects your gear ratios, and you're not wanting to hit the limiter too early, especially down these long straights. And if the wind swings round at all and goes from a headwind down the Hanger Straight to a tailwind down the Hanger Straight, or vice versa, you find yourselves in problems, don't you?
Well, it's a perennial problem at Silverstone, and in fact now the racetrack has changed considerably over these years, and therefore different parts of the circuit are going to be different to how they might have been for competitors first time here in 5 years.
Let's go back down to Haley. Let's see if we can hear it now.
Francesco, it's where you want to be starting on pole. There is an hour to go. Can you turn it into a win?
We hope yes. We know that we have a 10-second penalty according to the race of Portimao, but we are starting in the best position possible. So we hope for the best, and let's hope for the best win.
Thank you.
100% qualifying record inside the top 3 for that particular car this season. Federico Leo and Francesco Castellucci in the Ferrari 458 Italia. Alongside them on the front row is the Ford GT, the Fisher Racing Ford GT, Marcus Paltala and Stefan Lemeray. And then on the second row, the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, Nicholas Melhoff, I should say, putting that car 3rd on the grid for this race alongside the BMW Z4. There it is, the Need for Speed team. Schubert, Edvard Sandström starting the driver duties, and we go to the back of the grid. These are the team leaders, or the championship leaders, I should say, that had a pretty messy qualifying this morning. Saber Volta and Claudia Hurtgen starting on the 7th row, John.
Yeah, I mean, that's a surprise because this car was so competitive in Portimao in Portugal a few weekends ago. It still, I think, will be an issue. It'll be an item in the race. You know, sometimes some drivers, they look at the potential of what they can achieve in qualifying as against what they know they're capable of doing in a race. And with that mandatory pit stop, which comes between 25 and 35 minutes into the 1 hour event, I bet you they're confident of getting a good points finish. May not be a win this weekend, but certainly consistency and continuity of picking up points is what they'll be after.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the driver biographies before we came on air this afternoon and noted that Matthew Griffin is a keen poker player, so maybe he's the man that hasn't shown his hand in qualifying and might be moving through the field a bit later on.
I'd rather play with a mean one than a keen one.
That's very true. The Belgian Audi Club represented here, and on the 5th row, Enzo Ide will be starting off for the Belgian Audi Club team, WRT. And then we have the Mercedes-Benz, looking absolutely splendid. Do like that car.
Well, I think your name's written all over one of those, David. It is a fantastic car. In fact, leaving the circuit last night to head back home, I had one of them coming towards me, and I thought, I know the guy who owns that. Is that my mate? But it is a large car on the roads. Some of the smaller roads around the Silverstone area, the Dadford Road in particular, going into Bicester, it took up not only its side of the road, but a bit of my side of the road as well.
Who conceded first?
You know.
That means
what are you going to say?
That silence speaks golden, John Watson. That silence speaks golden.
I gave up my competitive racing 2 hours ago.
One thing to point out when we get down to the racing, that when the pit stop window opens, there are mandatory pit stop penalties for Enzo Ide and Gregory Franchi, and for Francesco Castellacci and Frederick Leo, our pole sitters, and Dominic Baumann and Brice Bossi, because of their success in the previous round. A 15-second, a 10-second and a 5-second mandatory extension to their pit stop.
Yes, and all this is measured from the point when the car enters the pit lane. There's a line across the pit lane. From that point until they exit across another line at the exit of the pit lane, they will have a minimum amount of time that they're allowed to be in the pits. And if you go quicker, in effect, as happened in Portimao, a number of teams were penalised for doing so, and that is something they will have to be very careful of, because again, here at Silverstone, the new pits complex, no one has done a race here. This is the first race where there is a pit stop involved, so teams will have had to be careful in monitoring the time it takes their car to come in, stop, do the change, go back out again, to ensure that they don't do it under the minimum amount of time required.
We'll see. I would imagine there is the recipe for confusion throughout the hour-long duration of this GT3 race, where of course there is the mandatory pit stop and the drivers swapping around. Each car's pit stop must last no less than 45 seconds.
And it's not the pit stop, it's the time you enter the pits to the time you leave the pits. It puts a lot of pressure on the guys to do the driver change, because in fact they don't have a huge amount of time to get that completed, and so we may well see some pit stops taking substantially longer than the minimum 45-second mandatory requirement.
And just to remind you that the pit stop window opens on lap 25 and it shuts firmly on lap 35, so all your pit stops need to be made during the 25th and 25th and 35th minutes of the race. Getting carried away, I don't think we'll be down to lap 25 by the time the 25th minute starts here. The pole time this morning, 2 minutes and 3 seconds, just a shade under 2 minutes and 4 seconds as we go down the grid. 27 cars contesting this race this morning, and the grid now cleared. We wait for the lights to go out and our formation lap, and you can just see how windy it is with the cameras getting buffeted around as the course car should now lead us off for this formation lap, this long Silverstone circuit, and into what is now a marvellous first corner, the right-hander at Abbey, where the cars should get through virtually unscathed. it's when they bunch up for the loop, which we'll see in a couple of moments' time, that the trouble may well occur.
Yeah, you've got a corner prior to the loop called Village, and that's the corner that will set up the issues when they go into the loop. And we certainly saw that in one of the support events here, the GT4 round, that everybody got through Abbey cleanly through Farm Curve. That's the left-hand corner immediately following Abbey. Then you get the first really big break before coming into Village Corner. It's a tight right-hand corner, down to second gear. Need to keep it neat and tidy, and then there's a short squirt up to the infamous loop, and that's where the concertina effect will take place.
As we go through the grid here, just some news to report that Duncan Cameron in the M-Tech Ferrari very slow away off the line for the formation line, and he was quite a few places out of position by the time he went through into Abbey. So technical problem down there. I'm sure he wasn't caught napping, John.
Well, normally these cars would be straight off the line. I mean, it may have been something with engaging the gear with the pedal gear shifts, and of course the Ferrari is still a very new GT3 race car, and although they've been racing all year but in various different guises depending on the championships around the world they race in, so it simply may have been a small issue of selection. We don't know, maybe even the driver himself hadn't got himself prepared. There's so many issues that can occur under the stress of the moments counting down to the start of the formation lap.
So the drivers now feeding their way round Luffield and into Woodcote, which normally would see them slowing down for the start of the race, but now of course only halfway through the lap.
Well, it doesn't look unloved. I mean, normally we'd expect to see the grandstands full of fans watching the cars come out of Luffield, come up to the formation of the grid, take the start and charge down into Copse. But there's nobody there any longer.
There is race control on the new start-finish straight. And interesting to see so much weaving going on even halfway through the lap to try and get some temperature into the tyres. The track temperature will have significantly warmed up, of course, from this morning's qualifying session, where there was even a few sprinkles of rain about at one stage. But I think with the wind as well, just keeping the temperature of the tarmac a little bit on the chilly side for these cars.
Yeah, it's essential on this formation lap. It is a long lap, 3.65. 3.6 miles, 5.8 kilometers. So while the tyres will gradually build up heat around this lap, it will then be when they come onto the grid and stand on it for real that they want to know there is some bite under their car going into turn one, into Abbey, then Farm Curve, then up to Village and the loop. And that's why cars do this. They try to put energy not in just to the tread of the tyre, but the sidewall, because by flexing the sidewall, then the whole tyre, the carcass of that tyre, will generate heat. And very often drivers will also be on and off the brake to try and get a bit of heat transfer through the suspension that the wheel is attached to, the hub, the disc, and then into the tyre itself.
Federico Leo then in the Ferrari, the black Ferrari, number 50, on pole position. The Ford GT of Marcus Paltalla alongside him on the front row. Then Edvard Sandström in the BMW Z4, the Need for Speed Team Schubert Z4. The Reiter Engineering Lamborghini just on the inside going through Vale starts the race in fourth. The Mercedes-Benz of Joachim Lambotti starts in fifth, and then Daniel Brown in the second of the Ferraris. The red Ferrari starts in sixth place. The safety car is away, and the clock can start counting down now as the lights go green, and we're racing away at Silverstone, and one of the BMWs making progress from the midfield as though into Abbey we go. The Ferrari, good starts. Look at that Lamborghini challenging the BMW, and someone's already off at Village. Could well have been one of the BMWs going off there. Into the loop we come now. Federico Leo in the Ferrari, nicely ahead by about 3 or 4 car lengths, and it seems to me that they're all filing through pretty much in the order they need to be. No one really going off the track at all, except one of the BMWs that has spent most of the first part of this lap actually running off the track itself. But they're nicely settled now, and there's 2 cars gone off. There's a Ferrari has gone off, and one of the United Autosports Audi R8s as well.
So they make their way down Wellington Straight on the brakes for the first time into Brooklands, diving down the inside BMW Z4. We don't know whether that was the car that was off track or not. There are 4 of them in the race now through Luffield, halfway round the lap. Remember, this is the revised start-finish straight, not the old Copse, Woodcote into Copse.
So challenging there, we pick up car number 32. That's the Andre Neuser outfit. Down towards Copse we come, Battle Royal, but out in front, I think we might have a change of lead, actually. I haven't picked up the Ferrari out in the lead at the moment. No, there he is, swinging away. I thought he was, but then our timing screen told me something completely different. The Ford GT of Marcus Paltala currently in second place as well. And just streaming through Magus and Beckett's, we can ride on board with car number 44, Dominic Baumann, Bryce Bosey and the Mercedes-Benz. Back now, down to the hangar straight, and the Ferrari of Federico Leo. But what's that? The Mercedes making a move down the inside and past the Ferrari into Stowe. Good move.
Yes, came out of Beckett's, got the position on the racetrack. Not the normal line running down the right-hand side of it. It meant that by the time they got into Stowe corner, he had control, but the Ferrari and the Aston behind just all backing up. The Mercedes leads this group of cars 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th.
Gaël Lesoudier in that Team LMP Motorsport Aston Martin has the Ferrari very much in his sights as they come now down into Abbey. No route through. It's Ferrari leads Ford, leads Lamborghini as it stands at the moment. Good move from Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof, making up a place on the opening lap. Can that Aston now try and force its way past Daniel Brown in the Ferrari going into the loop? No, he's just a bit too far back on this particular occasion, but he'll get a decent tow down the Wellington Straight, assuming he gets the traction out of the loop.
But the BMW behind, they were so strong in Portugal. But again, the Aston just gaining a little bit as they come through Aintree, the long, quick left-hander onto Wellington Straight and running down into Brooklands at 140 miles an hour.
So down into Brooklands we go, and it's car number 50, Frederic Leo in the AF Corsa Ferrari, that's starting to open out a little bit more of a gap, more of an advantage out in front. From that Ford GT, Marcus Paltala for Fisher Racing. Coming in third at the moment, the Lamborghini Gallardo, Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof, according to my information, is the man behind the wheel, although the timing screen says it's Albert von Turnen Taxis.
Well, the transponder thing, we've got it as Meyer-Melnhof, but it's showing Albert von Turnen Taxis in the car. And he's shown to have the fastest first sector as we go on to the second lap.
So it should be Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof. We shall see as we carry on. Edward Sandstrom running in fourth place at the moment, and Joachim Lambotti running in fifth as down the hangar straight we come. And that Ferrari just maintaining a nice gap at the moment to the Ford GT, not necessarily set up for Silverstone, but very competitive so far in the race. Now we look further down the field, Audi against Mercedes-Benz, absolutely no contest whatsoever as Enzo Ide slips his way up and into 12th place.
And there's going to be an Audi down the inside into Vale. As though not quite the Mercedes late on the brakes. Audi decided the safer thing is to back out of it at this early stage. Only 55 minutes remaining of a 60-minute race, so just over 4.5 minutes racing. So think about the future, not just about what's going to happen in the immediate turns.
Meanwhile, looking further up the field, Ferrari battling Mercedes-Benz once again. And there, the black Ferrari of our race leader, Federico Leo, out in front by a good few seconds at the moment, as we can pop down to the pit lane here from Hayley Coxon, our pit lane reporter today.
But Nicky seems to have gotten off to a good start. Is the Lamborghini okay for him starting the race?
Absolutely, the car seems absolutely fine, and he got a very good start. He was able to take one place, and I hope that we can maintain our tires until the end of the race. And I think I hope we should be in a good position for a podium.
Your mind, it would be the tyres.
Yeah, that's the main focus for the moment, because we are having problems on the top speed, and we're having a tough time with very low aerodynamics to keep up with the speed. And so the worry is obviously that the car's sliding a lot, and that we consume our tires above average, and so I'm hoping.
Thank you, Albert.
So that is Albert von Turnen Taxis, so we know for definite now that Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof is in that car, is in the Lamborghini, which is running a little lower to the ground. You don't want to be sliding, John, not with an hour's race to come here.
No, and of course, the more you slide, as we see a challenge coming down the straight, Mercedes and the Ferrari on the outside the racing line, but Mercedes hogging the entry into Stowe, but watch for the switchback as they come out of Stowe. The run down to Vale, the Ferrari under the rear wing, and the Mercedes goes defensive in the centre of the track, and once again the Ferrari's having to back out of it as Dan Brown holds position in 6th place.
Yeah, but Joachim Lambotti is going to be under pressure once more. How wide is Dan Brown going at the exit of the club corner, though? Completely leaving the track itself.
Yeah, I mean, he knows he's got a quicker car than the car he's following, the Mercedes. He's going to make a little look up the inside into Village. Can he get it done? No, not really convinced he's got the capacity to dive down the inside. The Mercedes, the bigger car, the more nimble Ferrari. Let's watch again. Here we see the start.
Yeah, as we see the black Ferrari of Francesco Leo on the right-hand side of your screen, now the left-hand side. It was a great jump from the second row of the grid from that BMW of Edward Sandstrom, moving himself up into 3rd place. Cars going a little bit wide, but actually it was a fairly clean start here. Sandstrom had lost out by the time he went into the loop to the Lamborghini, so the place he made up off the line was quickly taken back once again by Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof.
Yeah, being a little bit tentative and not showing the kind of forcefulness that we sometimes see from other drivers, and just being cautious.
Now, back to this great battle taking place between Daniel Brown and Joachim Lambotti. This is the battle for 5th and 6th place at the moment. Starting to get a bit detached from the top 4. Can Daniel Brown make his way up a little bit through the field, through Maggots and Beckett's? He's, to me, to the naked eye, John, losing a bit of ground here.
Yes, I mean, there's certain parts of the track the Ferrari is strong, but there are other bits where the Mercedes can clearly maintain its position, but they've got to be careful. Gaël de Soutier in the Aston Martin behind the Ferrari is potentially in a position to catch these two cars, and yet he's also under pressure from behind from the BMW. Yeah,
from Hervé Vos, who's racing in that BMW, currently in 8th place. Just focusing now as we go into Stowe is that Audi, that Mercedes-Benz, BMW, I'll get it right 3rd time. Can it make a move into Stowe? No, it's not.
No, again, just a question of being in the right position. Stowe is a difficult corner unless you can get alongside the car you're trying to overtake prior to the corner, and there you can take control, but you need to be doing it really down the inside, and it's very easy for a car to defend by carrying their position all the way down the right-hand side into Stowe.
Nicolas Lapierre and Gustavo Walter. Gustavo Walter just behind at the moment in 15th place. Our championship leaders. Can't see them being championship leaders by the time the cars leave Silverstone for the weekend. 4 laps completed, still Francesco Leo out in front, and who's that? Having a spin and a bit of a tumble and a turn, Joachim Lambotti, who was running up in 5th place, but that's going to drop him down.
Absolutely, he's gone behind now. Dan Brown has got well clear of the Ferrari. Now, was that a contact, or was that self-induced? The spin, we may see a replay of that moment, but an easy pass for the Ferrari that was 6th, now up to 5th place.
And Tobias Neuser is another that's had a spin down at turn 4, which, for those that know their Silverstone, is now the Village Loop, as we go back to a battle featuring car number 22, the United Autosports Audi of Mark Patterson. And ahead of Mark Patterson is car number 36, Harry Cohn in the BMW. Patterson looking for a little in the Porsche there, actually. Cohn out of the way. He's dropped down a couple of places.
And the United Autosport Audi right on the rear wing of the Porsche, coming into Stowe corner, into Copse corner, I beg your pardon. So this is the challenge of Silverstone, high-speed corners. Now up into Beckett's, probably the most daunting corner on any circuit I've been to, because they've just emasculated Eau Rouge and Spa to such a degree. To me, this is the bigger challenge.
Paul van Splunteren in that Pro Speed competition, Porsche 911. Just watching now down the hangar straight into Stowe. Easy pass from the Mercedes on the inside, the white Mercedes making its way through. Lovely to see the Mercedes-Benz SLS here racing in GT3 this year. Joachim Lambotti, after that little tumble, that little spin, starting to make his way back up the field again, but it's how many places he's lost in the process.
I mean, just looking at the timing and scoring, He currently, I think, is back in 13th from having been 5th place. So that was a very costly manoeuvre from Giacomo Lambotti in his Mercedes. Now he got past another on the back markers with ease, but of course, having done the initial good job and maintaining his position, he's just thrown it away and dropped all the way back down to 13th position.
What is interesting is Marcus Paltauer might actually start to be making a move through the field here. It's just set the fastest first sector time, and I wonder, has that Ford GT got tyres up to temperature? Is it now starting to gain consistently over the Ferrari out in front? Great battle going on for third and fourth here, and consistently over the last 3 laps that BMW's got closer.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about the Ford in second place, Paltauer, he picked up half a second in that first sector, so he can now actually see the difference, and not just that it's not a timing issue. He will know that he is closed and in one segment substantially to the lead Ferrari, and whether he can maintain that performance or whether he will now stall out. But there you see, coming on to Hanger Straight, the gap. Visually it doesn't look to us from the long camera shot, but from the cockpit of that Ford GT, he will be able to read the Ferrari in the rear wing.
But the Lamborghini under pressure from Edward Sandstrom behind in 4th place in that BMW, all over the rear wing of Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof down that Hanger Straight. Heavy braking zone coming up now into Vale, the left then right chicane. BMW, what, 4 car lengths back by the naked eye, and putting that Lamborghini under a huge amount of pressure.
Yes, and of course that's more than just a battle, it's a battle of tyre companies. BMW on the Dunlop tyre and the Lamborghini on the Michelin tyre.
Dunlop, of course, with just the 1 win in GT3, came last year in Spain. Hürtgen and Walter winning, becoming the first pairing to win with Dunlop tyres. Now into the loop, under braking once again. The BMW getting closer to that Lamborghini, and under a huge amount of pressure at the moment, Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof to try and hold on to 3rd place.
A little bit further back through the field, trying to catch up to Nicholas Lambotti in the Mercedes who spun earlier. It is trying to make up positions, drop from 5th all the way down to 13th, and now trying to pick off almost by the corner. He gets up the inside of the Porsche but can't get the job done before they hit Adelaide and then the Wellington Straight.
Petri Lapalainen in the Porsche just ahead of him, and this the battle for 13th and 14th place. Cars swapping places all the time. That's car number 44 just making its way up. Dominic Baumann in the Mercedes-Benz SLS. Dominic Baumann running up in 9th place at the moment. Car number 20, one of the many Ferraris we have in this race this afternoon. Luca Piri starting in that Ferrari 458 Italia. That's running around in 10th place at the moment.
Yes, I mean the 458s, in my view, potentially are the quickest car in the field, but some teams are just currently getting used to the car, understanding what the car's capacity is. But we can judge that by the pace of the lead car, the 50 Ferrari, the black car, that of Federico Leo, leading, one might say, uncomfortably by about half a second.
2 cars almost wheel to wheel, Ferrari and Mercedes-Benz down the Hanger Straight. Ferrari comfortably ahead by the time they get into Stowe, and car number 45 just having to concede ground there. Maybe under brake, he's going to be under pressure himself. Look, the Audi coming from way back to try and snatch a place, and does so.
And at the same time nearly tagged the rear of the Ferrari, just about sneaked into Vale, got ahead of the Mercedes. And the Mercedes, one Mercedes gets sideways as it comes out of club corner, trying to get a run as they come up into Abbey, but that little wobble was sufficient to lose the momentum. And again, Mercedes not quite so committed. There's the view again into Vale. Look
at that, late braking from Enzo Ide in the Belgian Audi Club R8. Fabulous piece of late braking, kept it so under control, and he's gunning for the Ferrari now as well. He's moved up into 10th place. He is not going to settle for that.
I mean, every time I look at Enzo Ide, I just think of bank manager, not racing driver.
Does that mean you owe him money?
No, it just means that you can't always judge a book by its cover.
John Watson and myself, David Croft, here in the commentary boxes. Ide might want to just check his approach into Brooklands again, because he just outbraked himself a bit, and he's under pressure there from that car number 45 behind him, Philippe Sladeka. Oh, and problem for the Aston Martin. Car number 8, which hadn't really been figuring in the opening part of this race, is running with damage, I think, to the front left tyre there, John. We'll see as it swings round. Looks like there's a major puncture on that Aston Martin. There's our leader, Federico Leo, untroubled so far.
Stefan, there's many challenges here at Silverstone for the Ford GT, but Marcus has taken on those challenges, and yourself, and doing really well out there.
Yeah, Marcus is doing a great job. It's really impressive what he's doing with this car, because I think the balance of performance is not the best for the Ford actually. So he's really impressive, and I'm looking forward for my stint, because it will be a difficult one, because it's my very first experience with the Ford, and it's one of the most difficult cars I have ever driven in GT. So my qualifying was very difficult, and it will be difficult to keep the position.
Thank you.
What's more difficult, a Ford GT or an Audi R8? Ask Zach Brown. He's the man that's just had this spin.
Well, there we look and see. That was that's the Zach Brown getting it wrong up in Beckett's, and you know, Zach's life is so packed with action, and that's off the racetrack. He's such a busy man, and this is meant to be relaxation, and he's putting himself under stress.
So we saw one Aston Martin, I should say, in trouble. Bernard Delhez, I think, having to pull over. We've got another Aston Martin being pressurised on the track itself at the moment, as we head towards Brooklands. And that BMW hunting down Gaël Lasoude. Herbert Voss trying to move his way up into 6th place.
And they've lost, they had some contact to Dan Brown in the Ferrari, but that gap has now opened up substantially. The Aston and the BMW are lapping 2 seconds slower than Dan Brown's Ferrari, which currently on the last lap was by far the quickest car.
And we're looking here, Pierre Hershey in the number 16 Audi, Jerome Demey in the number 15 Audi, swapping places almost as they swing left-handed through Brooklands. This is right at the back of the field. This is not a scrap for points by any stretch of the imagination, but the Audi's giving it a real go down there at the moment. And the number 32 Audi, it's lost ground as well. Belgian Audi Club of Tobias Neuser. But our race leader still, we haven't featured him for quite some time, Federico Leo. Marcus Paltala still keeping tabs in 2nd place. I'm not sure I want to be Stefan Lemeray. First experience in a Ford GT. John, about to enter a race in a few minutes' time with a car in 2nd place.
If I was him, I wouldn't have been giving interviews. I'd have been sitting in the garage in my own little zone and thinking, how am I going to make sure that I keep this car, number 50, the black Ferrari 458, when I take it over in the Ford GT, keep it in 2nd place, and maybe put a challenge on the lead Ferrari when they make their driver change, because that it will be Francesco Castellacci. Sounds like a coffee.
Could do one of those this afternoon. Right, Francesco Leo with a significant advantage, it has to be said, has not been headed at all in this race so far, but we don't know, we can't see what that Ferrari is doing to its tyres at the moment.
Well,
so
I tell you what, the
looking
Ferrari,
quite good.
It's pulling away in the last lap. The gap has suddenly opened up. It was under half a second, now it's over a second, and the Ferrari seems to have found something. Maybe it was a problem with the Ford, maybe there was issues around the track that caused the loss of time, but certainly the Ford has dropped the best part of a second from the half a second it was previously behind, and there's now clear air. You can see Ford not even in view as they go through Beckett's.
Yep, through into Chapel now. There's our race leader, and there's the battle, which was, well, it was a procession for 2nd and 3rd. I think very much a battle for 2nd and 3rd now, because Marcus Paltala is going to start to come under increasing pressure from Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof in a few moments' time. Car number 11 running, not in 11th place, but pretty near, well, 16th place at the moment. It's not been the greatest race for Leonard Matschke so far, although moving his way up from the 11th row on the grid. Thomas Neuser, the Audi, by the way, lost a huge amount of places at the start in that three-way battle with the Audis we saw a few moments ago.
Yeah, I thought Paltala had a problem. He tried to, there's the gap between first and second opened up, but watching the cars coming through Beckett's, there's the reason, the right rear car. He's picked up something in the circuit, and that's why suddenly the gap between first and second didn't exist, because he was in big time trouble. And now 25 in third place. That's the Nicholas Meyer-Meilhoff, the Lamborghini. So maybe Albert Tulen von Taxis may get his dream come true with a podium finish.
Well, you never know. But that is an absolute bitter luck there for Marcus Paltala, who's done absolutely nothing wrong from our vantage point here, John, in the opening stages of this race, and completely out of a chance of getting a podium now. It's whether they can get the car back out on the track again, as eventually they managed to get the tyre off. Not much rubber left.
No, that tyre is only the sidewall on one side remaining. Hopefully there's been no damage to the bodywork. A flailing tyre is a very lethal weapon on a race car, so let's hope there's no mechanical or bodywork damage to that car, aside from all the time lost, taking the best part of a lap to get back to the pits, and of course, as you mentioned, David, out of the points and out of any podium chance.
Riding on board with Dominic Baumann now in his Mercedes-Benz SLS. He has the Frenchman of Gaël Lessoudier ahead of him. He's currently racing in 7th place, as out of cops we come.
And Voss has actually got ahead of Lessoudier in that BMW. So again, around the track, we didn't catch it. The BMW was pressurising the Aston Martin from the beginning of this race, has found a way through. So it's now the Aston under pressure from the SLS Mercedes. Yeah,
and Baumann certainly closing up on Lessoudier here, as down the Hangar Straight we ride on board, increasing the speed up to about 255 or so kilometres an hour, maybe nudging 260 kilometres an hour top speed. 0.4 of a second of the difference between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes-Benz. I'd hazard a guess on this lap that's actually come down just a little bit as well. As into Vale we go. Pit lane entrance has been bypassed. There's 3 cars all in a line, because the Ferrari is gaining as well. 4 cars all in a line, John.
Yes, I mean, that's a little group of cars that have compacted one to the other, and again, the opportunity of closing a car down inspires you, while the car that is being hunted down, you end up having a driver try to do 2 things. One is drive looking forward, and at the same time look back. But the Lamborghini under pressure now from the BMW coming through Aintree onto Wellington Straight. Could this be a change of position? Lamborghini going back to 3rd where it started this race.
Edvard Sandström is closing down all the while. Our leader, Francesco Leo, in the Ferrari, lapping well over a second faster than the guy in 2nd place, and that I mentioned earlier. Tobias Neuser had lost places at the start, losing even more places 25 minutes into this GT3 race, and the pit lane window is going to be open in round about 35 seconds time should cars want to come in. And
oh yeah, now that was that will have done that set of tyres an absolute no power of good at all, and he could have gone into the pit lane. But of course the pit lane wasn't open to make that stop, so he's required to do one more lap. But watch Dan Brown in the Ferrari. He is clearly the quickest of these 3 cars. The Lamborghini is the one under pressure and is being hunted down by Sundstrom in the BMW.
It might all change by the time we exit the Hangar Straight here. Edvard Sandström very much has the Lamborghini of Meyer-Meilhoff in his sights. Daniel Brown in the Ferrari is trying to gain in on him as well, as the pit lane window is now open, and we're going to see some early changes. Maybe for our race leader? No. Francesco Leo, why should he come in, John? He's putting in the lap times at the moment, nothing troubling him.
Well, I mean, if you've got clear air, as he currently has, he's not close to any car that he might have to get involved in an overtaking maneuver. He's got 10 minutes in which he can stay in his car and maintain clear air and ground. But at the back, there we see the Aston coming in, and the Mercedes as well. So already the pit lane is going to be busy.
Isn't it just? But the Ferrari stayed out, and also our 2nd and 3rd place drivers stayed out as well, as Gaël Lessoudier comes in. Dominic Baumann come in pitting from 5th and 6th. And Dominic Baumann, of course, has a 5-second extra waiting time for his penalty for finishing on the podium in the last race to endure during the course of this pit stop window.
Well, there's a time taken for a driver to get out, quite a long time for Baumann to get out of that Mercedes-Benz.
He's got the extra time.
Well, he's got the extra time. Nevertheless, the driver gets out, falls out, tumbles out. Sometimes you get pulled out by your teammate. Key is to have the seat belts placed in such a way as the driver entering the car doesn't sit on the thing, which is an inconvenience when you try to do your seat belts up.
It's an inconvenience, full stop, and it might take a while to wipe the smile off your face, John. Car number 11 pitting. We've currently got 6 or 7 cars in this pit lane. Stopwatches are on. They have to remain stationary for no less than 45 seconds, which is why you don't see the mad scramble in GT3, because they know they're going to be in there for a while nonetheless. Meanwhile, our leader still lapping a second and a half quicker than the cars around him. So far, this has been a perfect afternoon for the Ferrari 458 of Federico Leo and Francesco Castellacci.
Yes, and once the 4GT in second place, once that had the problem, picked up a puncture, then the gap back to the Lamborghini now in second and being chased down by the BMW of Sandstrom in third place. He has got the perfect situation, and I would anticipate he will stay out until the last moment. He's got the momentum, he's got the speed. Dan Brown dived into the pits in the Ferrari. That's a car that was in fourth place. So
that moves Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof up into the lead, but he hasn't pitted yet. Into second place still, and waiting to pit. But will he pit from second or will he pit from third? Because Edward Sandstrom still gaining on him at the moment. I just wonder if that Lamborghini is holding up the BMW. Why doesn't the BMW pit a lap or two early, John?
Well, I don't know, you know. It's a mixture of gentlemen drivers. There's 3 grades of drivers. There's gold, silver and bronze.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know whether that applies to the team management as well.
Well, Sandstrom, his teammate, Abdulaziz Al Faisal, is a silver driver as well. So you think they're actually comparable drivers. They're both silver.
Yes, and it's also his birthday today as well. So everything should be in favour of getting him into the car as quickly as possible. But again, there's a lot to be said. If a driver is in the groove, got the momentum, and in a strong position, wait until then the second place car, the Lamborghini, should then choose to make its pit stop and then decide what to do afterwards.
Our race leader coming up to the back markers and starting to pick his way through those moving a little slower.
And that's really, I think, the time that we will see the Ferrari, the lead Ferrari of Leo, come into the pits, because this is where you start to lose your momentum. And they've got 3 cars ahead, and I would think that at the end of this lap, this black Ferrari leading the race from the lights going out, is going to be in the pit stop, and the driver change will take place. It will be Francesco Castellacci.
Now, there's a problem down here for the 51 AF Corsa. Daniel Brown and Glenn Geddy swapping over, and they can't seem to get the car started. Geddy actually in the Ferrari at the moment, and they've got a problem, and it's been sat there for a long, long while. And John, that is an absolute disaster, as our leader now pits with just over half the race to go. Our leader is in and making his pit stop, and he comes in whilst the sister car at AF Corsa is still stationary in the pit lane. You can see it as he comes down the pit lane itself.
Yeah, but now what's happened to Dan Brown's car, we don't know, whether it's not refiring or whether there's an issue with the clutch or the selection of the gear. There's so many things in these cars. As I mentioned earlier, they're still, in relative terms, in this GT3, guys, new cars. It's a work in process, in effect, but quick change by the Italians. One driver out, other driver in. Leo out. Castellacci gets into the car, assistance from Leo to get the seat belts across the shoulders, get the buckle connected.
And they had a fine lead when they came into the pits, and they're going to need it as well, because they've got the extra 10 seconds for their runners-up position in the second race at the last round. So they wait an extra 10 seconds, therefore need to get that extra 10 seconds gap over the rest when they come to make their pit stop. It's going to be quite touch and go, I must admit. And what's the problem here? Albert von Turnentaxis into the Lamborghini, and Edward Sandstrom, Nicholas Meyer-Melhoff, I should say, just gesticulating a bit.
Just gets going now. Now that was a long time more than 45 seconds. But the Lamborghinis had a better stop.
Yeah, exactly, and it would be because of the 10-second extra penalty that Ferrari had. The Lamborghini didn't suffer from a penalty.
This is true, and that's where it really, really hurts. All the work done to get that lead car into its position.